in secret. Locations unknown, even to most of those on board. An exclusive look inside America's most secret submarine.
Funding for NOVA is provided by Johnson & Johnson, the signature recognized around the world for commitment to quality healthcare products for the entire family. And Lockheed, a bold new force in systems engineering, management, and technology services for defense, space, and industry. Major funding for NOVA is provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the financial support of viewers like you.
Beneath the surface of the world's oceans, silent hunters lurk. Submarines lying in wait, ready for the kill.
Sonar Supervisor, I have a new spherical ray demonstrates bearing 345, designate Sierra 49, tracker Bravo, sign on ATF.
Fine-tuned to detect the faintest sound, every contact is a potential target.
Designate Sierra 49. Sierra 49 is classified a hostile warship.
Captain. I have mass on bearing at 345.
Off the deck, I'll take the scope.
All right, eye, high power.
Mark the bearing. Down scope. Warship on the horizon. Off the deck, man battle station's torpedo.
Battle station's torpedo, aye. Man battle station's torpedo. Chief the watch, sign the general alarm. General alarm, aye.
The cloak of the ocean is their advantage, for their prey seldom knows it's being stalked.
Dive, make your depth 80 feet.
We got a bunch of them out there, and they're submerged all the time. Nobody knows they're there. They're doing their business.
Torpedo. Off the deck, I relieve you of the con.
I stand relieved, sir.
Quartermaster Helmsman, the captain has the con. Executive officer, designate the contact in the horizon as Master 1.
Master 1, aye, sir. All stations, contact of interest is Master 1.
Depth 80 feet.
Up scope.
Solitary stalkers, they are and always have been the most treacherous, most sinister ships in the sea.
Bearing. Mark. Down scope.
Now let's go.
345.5.
Point 4 divisions in high power. Use 100-foot masthead height.
Range 20,000 yards.
Make tubes 2 and 3 ready in all respects.
Make tubes 2 and 3 ready in all respects, aye, Captain.
Well, the whole point of having submarines is to sneak up on somebody and bushwhack them.
On the bow, headed over the horizon, he will be in our vicinity very shortly. I intend to take a quick observation to verify his course and making a torpedo attack on him. Carry on.
Hold on.
Helm right, 20 degrees, runner.
Now angle on the bow. Enter system, Master 1.
Observation on Master 1 from number 2 scope.
There's a lot of submarines at sea. They're all hidden, and none of us really know what they're on about.
Point A right.
Fire core procedures. Master 1, tube 2.
Solution ready. Weapon ready.
Final bearing and shoot. Up scope.
Number 2 scope coming up. Overwatch, tube 2.
The only way you find out if a submarine's around in time of war is when a torpedo warhead goes on.
The German U-boats of World War I sank 16 million tons of British shipping. In the 2 world wars, 80% of all the ships lost were destroyed by submarines. Today, a single U.S. submarine can carry more destructive force than all the firepower unleashed in both world wars, enough to obliterate cities or whole countries. One Russian submarine can do the same. Throughout the Cold War, ballistic missile submarines were the primary instruments of a strategy known as mutually assured destruction. Basically, a guarantee that enough weapons would survive a nuclear first strike to deliver a devastating response. But now, following the collapse of the Soviet Union, what is the role of these boats? Both here and in the Commonwealth of Independent States that replaced the Soviet Union, there are rumors of submarine fleet reductions, but military analysts assert that little or nothing has changed in actual ballistic missile submarine operations. that the U.S. and Russia are still maintaining the vigil they kept when tensions were high. But it's hard to know for sure, since submarine operations are virtually unknown to the public, except for what is portrayed in the movies.
15 seconds.
Sound collision.
Sound collision.
The most recent example is The Hunt for Red October, based on the suspense thriller by novelist Tom Clancy.
Right full rudder. Reverse starboard engine. Right full rudder. All flaps starboard south.
It sketched a fanciful picture of modern ballistic missile submarine operations, set against a traditional Cold War view of U.S.-Soviet relations. But Clancy, as knowledgeable as any outsider can be, could still only guess at the details.
You find a lot of writers about things in submarines. What you generally find is the amount that a guy writes about submarines is generally inversely proportional to his understanding and experience in the business.
When Tom Clancy in Hunt for Red October describes that cat and mouse game, is it true? Do we do that kind of thing? Do we really get up close and personal with each other?
I just don't want to get into that.
Okay.
What we do know is that the Russian Republic is in charge of the submarine fleet. Currently, they have 140 submarines capable of carrying nuclear missiles. The United States has 33 ballistic missile submarines. The Russians have nearly 200 attack submarines, hunter-killers in the tradition of the U-boats. The United States has 88. Only 50% of Russian submarines are propelled by nuclear power. All U.S. submarines are nuclear-powered. The locations of submarines are among the most tightly guarded state secrets. But informed estimates suggest that the playing field has remained virtually the same despite the political changes. About 2/3 of United States ballistic missile submarines are on patrol in the North Atlantic, North Pacific, the Arctic Ocean, and the Mediterranean, locations that still allow their missiles to reach Russian targets. Russian ballistic missile submarines patrol closer to home, near the ports of Kolyma and Murmansk, where missiles could be launched through openings in the ice to targets within the United States. There are rumors that many of the Russian attack submarines have been called to port, subs that would normally track our ballistic missile submarines. Missile subs hide, attack subs seek. The advantage goes to the hidden, incredibly quiet machines that can disappear anywhere within 7/10 of the Earth's surface. The Navy's largest ballistic missile submarine base is located in Bangor, Washington. This is the USS Michigan, one of 11 Trident ballistic missile submarines, the newest and most advanced class in the U.S. Navy's arsenal. Today, this submarine and others like it carry almost half of America's long-range nuclear weapons. On this day, the Michigan and her crew will embark on a patrol that will last more than 80 days. They will spend their time hiding from, not seeking, potential adversaries, because their mission is to keep the missiles they carry hidden. Beneath this blue closure may be a Trident D5 ballistic missile. Its stellarated computer guidance system could deliver the missile's 8 nuclear warheads to targets more than 4,000 miles away. But the Navy will neither confirm nor deny the presence of nuclear weapons here. Another aspect of the terrible uncertainty that makes submarines such an awesome threat. Many of the Michigan's enlisted men are just a few years out of high school. They're all volunteers who have passed comprehensive psychological testing. The men are paid better than those in the surface fleet, regular rate plus hazardous duty pay. But they must sign on for a longer hitch, 6 years instead of 4. Other than the crew's physical and psychological endurance, food is the only factor which limits the length of the Michigan's patrol. Enough food is loaded for 105 days. However, perishable items like fresh fruit, vegetables, and milk will be gone within 2 weeks.
I'm trying to load fresh and perishables today. We usually do it on the last day. Most items, you know, you can live without or remake. say if I run out of ketchup, I can use tomato paste and spice it up and make ketchup. But if you run out of coffee, you've got an angry crew on your hands because they go to sea, I think, on caffeine, basically. Be careful with them now. Remember, guys, these are eggs and not rocks, so take it easy on them.
Bye-bye.
Goodbyes for these men are different than they are for other sailors.
Bye-bye.
Oh, good hugs.
Due to the secrecy of ballistic missile submarine operations, there will be no phone calls or letters home. Even though each family on shore will be able to send 8 short messages, they know their words must go unanswered.
Good afternoon, John. Place the crew at parade rest, please. Crew!
Captain Mark Keefe, commanding officer of the Michigan.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I have a few words to say before you get underway, just to make sure that we understand that we have been in port for about the last 3 months, and we're about to take the most complex, sophisticated piece of machinery that has ever been created by the engineers of the United States of America and take it out to sea and go on patrol with it. All of those things which you were so good at the last time you were on patrol, you're going to find yourself a little rusty on now.
Submariners are schooled specifically for their unique duty, spending nearly half of each year training on shore to keep up to date with changing technologies and strategies. The complexity of the ship these men sail is a direct consequence of the lengthy undersea competition with the Soviet Union.
The last time we got underway was in the middle of winter, and there weren't too many fishing craft around. You are now right in the middle of salmon season, and I expect to see an awful lot of additional traffic out there, which we didn't see last time. Be careful.
But simulations on land and duty at sea are two different things. These men are not going out on a training exercise. They leave prepared to perform the unthinkable, if directed, to launch their nuclear weapons.
Conduct a sonar search to verify that we have, in fact, made a covert egress from port and that we are on our way to a successful patrol. Chief of the boat, call the crew to attention.
Crew, hut. Department heads, take charge. Man the maneuvering watch.
For the first time ever, the Navy allowed a film crew to accompany a Trident submarine on active patrol. Certain limits were imposed on Nova. The Navy screened all footage for security breaches. A few shots were censored. But Nova was given enough access to capture the flavor of life on board and gain rare insight into submarine operations. From seeing World War II movies, we expected a small, dark, confining place. But at nearly 2 football fields in length and 4 stories tall, today's modern submarine accommodates its 165-man crew in relative comfort.
Well, this was supposed to be the first one. This is from the jump start. This is where they're going to start.
Is this everybody's? Yeah, this is everybody.
Living quarters for the enlisted men are nestled amidst the Michigan's 24 missile tubes.
What'd you do last night?
Played with the kids.
Yeah.
You got to do that before you leave.
Played with Magoo.
Magoo.
That's what I did. I played with
Killer dog.
Lay down with the babies till they fell asleep.
Yeah. You got it. I had to.
Once on board, the demands of the machine come first. Even constants like length and time of day are altered to better serve the rhythm of the machine.
Oh, it takes a couple of days, believe me, because we're switching from 24-hour days to, your 18-hour days, or 6 on, 12 off, 6 on, 12 off. And that'll, it takes a little getting used to also. And then when you wake up and, the only way you can tell if it's breakfast or day or night by what meal you're eating. And, so things like that.
Sound of ship's whistle.
Sound of ship's whistle, all right.
Do it again, one more time.
It might seem strange to so blatantly advertise the movement of a submarine. But to be an effective deterrent, everyone has to know it's ready for business.
Canal Bridge, up maybe. Thanks for the opening. We'll see you next time.
It is assumed that the surface transit of this boat through the Hood Canal is being viewed by friend and foe alike, whether by binoculars on shore or satellites in space. Later, Michigan will go through a rigorous process enabling it to virtually disappear into the depths of the ocean. The Navy says no submarine is more stealthy. It is the latest development in the 100-year history of designing underwater weaponry. On May 7th, 1915, the passenger ship Lusitania was within sight of shore when, without warning, she sank to the bottom, taking 1,200 souls with her. At first, the tragedy was a mystery. Then the horrifying realization that a German U-boat had let loose her torpedoes from beneath an otherwise peaceful ocean. Suddenly, the rules had changed. From that moment on, the oceans belonged to no one, and modern submarine warfare had begun. In World War II, submarine operations became deadlier still, disrupting supply lines, terrorizing battle groups. The submarine's fastest underwater speed was seldom more than 8 knots, making them prey to ever-improving countermeasures. Underwater listening devices allowed surface ships to hunt the hunters. When they found one, they had a crude yet effective means of fighting back: depth charging.
If you're under attack, if you were under attack in World War II, you've turned off all the machinery, it's quiet, there's no air conditioning, it's hot and sticky, you're perspiring. If a depth charge goes off close, light bulbs break, the cork flies in the air, the screw heads fly from the bulkheads moving, and the light sheet metal bulkheads moving, and it's there's a certain amount of stress.
But you know, the good thing we were young, because I got my old patrol reports here, you know, and I've read them recently, and I wonder how in the world did we do that? We would make an attack, get depth charge, let the convoy go on, and then when they'd gotten clear, we'd surface and go up and go in on them again, doing the same thing, knowing we were going to get depth charge. Well, I don't think I could do that now. And maybe that's why they said anybody, when they hit the 35th birthday in submarines, they were taken out because they were too old at 35, because they got too much sense or something. I don't know.
Despite vulnerability to countermeasures, U.S. submarines were a pivotal factor in the defeat of the Japanese. By war's end, the submarine had become the most lethal of all naval weapons. But a new, even more potent submarine lurked just over the horizon.
As a sailor, I recognize this ship as the beginning of a new chapter in the history of sea power.
In 1954, the Nautilus, with her nuclear propulsion system, heralded an age of vastly improved range, speed, and maneuverability for submarines.
Here was a submarine that could go indefinitely submerged and never come up. The limiting factor of the old sailing ship days was how much water you had and how much food you could carry. The wind was there all the time. If you had the sails, it wouldn't rip out. But now with a nuclear submarine, suddenly, we're back in the sailing ship days. You go as long as there's food, as long as there are provisions, as long as you can get water to feed your crew.
A few years later, the advance of rocket technology secured the future of the submarine as part of America's defenses.
24 hours now, a new factor of enormous significance has attended the increasingly complicated world in which we live.
Russian scientists toasted each other in vodka tonight over...
When the Soviets successfully launched Sputnik, they jumped ahead of the U.S. in the space race.
Transmitted by the Earth-circling satellite. One of the great scientific feats of the age.
But more ominously, their superior rockets gave them the ability to deliver nuclear weapons to the United States. The fear that resulted accelerated the United States' efforts to develop its own means of delivering nuclear weapons to targets within the Soviet Union. One bold approach: put nuclear missiles on board undetectable nuclear submarines and deploy them just off the coast of Russia. In January 1958, just 2 months after the shock of the Sputnik launch, the Navy cut an attack submarine in half and inserted a 130-foot section to accommodate 16 missile launching tubes. She was christened the George Washington. 18 months later, the George Washington made history, launching an intercontinental ballistic missile from underwater. Now there were two types of submarines roaming the seas: attack subs, hunting as subs had always been designed to do, and missile subs, keeping nuclear weapons hidden even near an enemy's doorstep. Today, the missiles on board the Michigan are capable of reaching targets thousands of miles away from here near Puget Sound, or indeed from anywhere in the North Pacific. The exact location of her patrol area is so secret that most of the members of the Michigan's crew have no idea where they'll be going.
Chief of the watch, last man down from the bridge, hatch secured, bridge rigged for dive.
Last man down, hatch secured, bridge rigged for dive, aye, sir.
After an 8-hour transit on the surface, the Michigan has reached water deep enough for submerging.
Quartermaster, sounding.
Sounding 85,000. Check the chart, Captain.
Very well. Off to the deck. Submerge the ship.
Submerge the ship. Diving officer. Submerge the ship.
Submerge the ship, dive aye. Chief of the watch on the 1MC, pass the word. Dive, dive, sound 2 blasts of dive alarm, pass the word, dive, dive.
Dive, dive. Dive, dive.
All vents indicate open.
Ready now.
The physical process of diving the submarine is relatively simple. Vents are open on the top of the hull, allowing air to escape from tanks that keep the ship afloat. As the Michigan's buoyancy changes, she slips beneath the surface. Adjusting the buoyancy by flooding or pumping seawater out of the ballast tanks will be a continuous process for the entire time the Michigan remains submerged.
Decks awash.
6-4 feet.
The psychological process of diving the sub is harder to describe. Intense concentration is required, since moments of transition present the greatest danger.
7-6.
As the periscope slips beneath the surface, this is the last glimpse our world will have of the Michigan until she returns. The 560-foot, 18,000-ton warship disappears without a ripple.
8-6, 8-8, 90 feet, 92 feet.
Diving causes a noticeable change in the crew. They know they're entering a world in which humans were not intended to exist. Due to the great pressure of the sea, modern military submarines can only sail the top 20% of the ocean. But a major malfunction or error in judgment could send them into the crushing depths below.
130 feet.
It's an unforgiving environment, for one thing. It's an environment that does not let you make mistakes and not react to those mistakes quickly. It's an environment that is best termed by oh God, the sea is so great and my ship is so small. You never hesitate, or you never can help but be reminded of how insignificant that ship is, even though it's a powerful warship by any standards, how insignificant that ship is with the power of the seas. On the surface, the power of the ocean to crush that submarine if you should ever get yourself into a situation where it drifts below your test depth, or you get yourself into some type of a casualty and can't take the proper action right away and recover from it. It can be over within a minute. And that minute is a long minute, because it's the initial seconds of combating that casualty that can either save or condemn the ship to the depths of the ocean.
The long search to find the hulk of the atomic submarine Thresher
is led by the Bethesda.
The unforgiving nature of the sea was made clear by the tragedy of the Thresher, one of only 2 U.S. submarines lost since the end of World War II.
Made her last dive and became the watery tomb for a crew of 129 men, 8,000 feet beneath the sea.
Because all 129 men were trapped inside the sub, no one will ever know for sure why she went down.
The Navy photographs the ill-starred sub. In one photo, her number shows clearly.
You got to remember, flooding in a submarine's a big deal. It doesn't take a very big hole to make a very big problem. And what that did was harden the resolve of the people that build them and the people that operate them that we're going to put the same level of rigor in and quality assurance and control into every aspect of construction of that submarine that we had put only in selected areas earlier on. It really taught us a lesson we've sort of known before. But we were operating at deeper depths than we ever had before, at higher speeds. It was part of the learning curve. Unfortunate.
The properties of the sea which make submarining so dangerous also make communication with submarines extremely difficult. All contact with the outside world happens here, the radio room, perhaps the most classified place on the boat. Secret because of the sophisticated cryptographic equipment used to decode messages sent from onshore command centers.
And this is the place where we are in constant communication to receive messages as directed by the President of the United States that affect the status of our weapons system.
To assure that a message from the President will get through, the Navy can transmit radio signals from land, air, and space to its fleet of submarines. The most reliable method uses an extremely low-frequency radio wave, or ELF. But ELF is slow, capable of transmitting a limited number of characters in a given span of time. To receive higher frequency radio waves and more data, a submarine crew can deploy a long wire that floats close to the surface, or the submarine can risk detection by rising close enough to the surface to put up its antenna. A submerged submarine's only sensory input is sound.
Sierra 3, Echo Lima.
The sonar team must rely on dozens of underwater microphones dispersed along the hull to safely guide their way and to alert them to anything or anyone who might be in the surrounding waters.
Bell buoy bearing 149.
Okay, there are 2 kinds of sonar that we basically deal with, the passive and the active portion. The passive is much like a microphone picking up sound out of the water and transforming it into electrical energy, which we see on our screens. That's where we just listen. The active portion is an actual ping out into the water. You hear that a lot on your submarine movies on TV, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, stuff like that. That's the active portion. We personally like the passive a lot better than the active.
That's Sierra 3, right?
The pinging of active sonar would give the Michigan's position away. Passive sonar not only keeps a submarine hidden, but provides more detailed information about what might be out there.
Sierra 2 and Sierra 3 are classified late emergence by nature of sound. Sierra 1, unable to get oral classification.
We can distinguish different ship types. For example, a submarine we can distinguish from a merchant ship, things like that. We're not quite at the hunt for Red October stage where the machine will automatically tell us. That's where the sonarman's knowledge and aggressiveness comes into play.
How far can you hear with sonar?
Really far. That's all I can tell you.
The rest is classified?
You bet.
And the only sensory input a submarine skipper has is his sonar. Therefore, he has to have a leading sonarman who, first of all, is very good at his job, and secondly, knows how to communicate with a skipper. So there's no ambiguities. He knows exactly what the sonarman's thinking, and the sonarman has to know exactly what the skipper wants. So that's, aside from the commanding officer, that may be the most important job on the boat, being the leading sonarman.
Officer deck, hold us crossing the Continental Shelf, entering deeper water.
Very well, Quartermaster. Inform the captain. Captain, Officer deck, sir. We've crossed the Continental Shelf. I'm ready to set up for a detailed sonar search.
As the Michigan enters deeper water, she has more room to maneuver. The sonar team will soon begin an intensive search to locate anyone else in the area. Contacts they have to avoid.
Station to fire control tracking party. All ahead 1/3.
Engine 1/3, sir.
Off to the deck. Rig the ship for ultra quiet.
Rig ship for ultra quiet, I Captain. Chief of watch. Rig ship for ultra quiet.
Rig ship for ultra quiet.
Ultra-quiet status requires shutting down all machinery not essential to the operation of the ship. Any member of the crew who is not on duty must be in his bunk. This ensures that the only sounds the sonar team will hear will be coming from outside the ship.
Officer deck, verify the best depth for sonar search.
Verify best depth for sonar search, I Captain. Captain, best depth for sonar search is 300 feet.
300 feet, very well.
The best depth for a thorough sonar search is a function of a number of variables, including temperatures and currents.
Sonar coordinator, report your contact.
Coordinator sonar, initiating sonar search.
A series of computers sort through all the sound that is collected by the submarine's underwater microphones. Those sounds are separated into discrete bands, which appear on the displays as vertical lines.
Report sure has no contact.
Aye. Select tracker Charlie, analyze.
The sonar man may recognize patterns of sound that show up on the display, or he can refer to a library of patterns stored in the ship's computer to try to identify who or what is around him.
Biologics bearing 188.
Coordinator sonar, biologics bearing 188.
Tracker Charlie.
The source of many of the sounds in the ocean are what submariners call biologics, marine life, which can make more noise than a surface ship.
4-4, tracker Delta assigned.
Coordinator sonar, hold 2 total array demonstrations. Designate Sierra 4-3, tracker Charlie assigned, bearing 352. Designate Sierra 4-4, tracker Delta, best bearing 003.
For increasing speed to 2/3, coming right, clear baffles.
Helm, steady course 030.
Steady course 030, MI.
Sonar coordinator, right? Sonar coordinator, order course 030.
The Michigan has now changed course from due west to northeast. The maneuver allows the sonar team to look for additional contacts in the blind spot that was directly behind them. The submarine has this baffled area because sound sensors deployed from the rear of the submarine would only pick up the sound of the propeller.
We have active echo ranging bearing 091, designate Sierra 45, target follower uniform assigned.
Indeed, the maneuver has revealed a new contact.
Target follower uniform.
Best platform for Sierra 45.
Sierra 45 would be Canadian warship.
Aye. Sierra 45 is believed to be Canadian warship based on active echo ranging.
Very well. Coordinator sonar,
target follower
classifying
uniform,
Sierra
analyze
45
Sierra
as
45.
Canadian warships based on active transmissions.
Active transmission is in a 20,000-yard range scale.
Coordinator sonar, hold active transmissions from Sierra 45 and 20,000-yard range scale.
Sonar report Sierra 45, classified as Canadian warship based on active transmissions.
Canadian warship, very well. Quartermaster, what is the distance to the local Canadian operating area?
15 nautical miles, Captain.
Very well. The bearing to the contact correlate to the Canadian operating area?
Captain, that bearing correlates with the Canadian operating area.
Very well.
A Canadian warship is using active sonar to scour the ocean. It may have found the Michigan.
Work out a best course for a egress from the area from plot.
Aye, sir.
Even though it presents no threat, the Michigan's orders are to avoid all contacts.
Both contacts to the north are in excess of 20,000 yards and drawing right. Sierra 45 has a slight right.
Slight left. We think he's
going
a little bit more than
concur.
Captain, recommend course 245 to avoid all 3 contacts.
Very well. Helm, all ahead 2/3.
Ahead 2/3 down line.
Helm, left 20 degrees,
The
rudder.
detailed sonar search is now complete. They have plotted a covert escape from the coast and are headed to open ocean.
Very well, Helm, on the dive, make it F246 feet.
The sonar team will continue its alert status 24 hours a day, listening for any sign that someone may be out there.
Chief of the watch, rig ship for patrol quiet.
Rig ship for patrol quiet. Now secure the fire control tracking party.
Rig ship patrol quiet, Commander again.
The crew will keep themselves and their machinery quiet in case someone else is out there looking for them. The need to eliminate all extraneous noise is an essential part of the effort to achieve an undersea advantage.
Stand relieved.
Attention, Helm, quartermaster, ship control party, Lieutenant Duran has the deck and the con.
The Soviets used to be much, much noisier than we were. They clanked, literally clanked about the ocean, because I think they'd advanced their technology in terms of propulsion so quickly, they didn't have the time or the effort or the particular will to make themselves quiet. They didn't reckon in terms of submarine versus submarine in those days. They thought in terms of submarine versus surface ships, sinking your carriers, the Norwegian Sea or wherever. Then suddenly it clicked, and they've gone very quiet indeed. They're beginning to match us in the degree of quietness of a submarine under the ocean.
FBI agents have taken 47-year-old...
But Soviet improvements were not merely a result of technological advances, but of espionage.
U.S. government officials believe Walker was the head of a spy ring that has been operating for at least 15 years.
John Walker was a warrant officer in the Atlantic Submarine Command. As a communications specialist, Walker had access to highly classified maps, which showed him not only the locations of U.S. submarines, but also the locations of Soviet submarines we had found.
John Walker could receive a life sentence if convicted of espionage.
For nearly 2 decades, Walker passed this information to the Soviets, usually by dropping it in a place specified by the KGB in the Maryland countryside.
Most of the events that have happened that have assisted the Soviets, and there have been more than we would like, certainly, have not been the sort of thing where they say, I've got the plans for this wonderful new thing, and I've got the plans for the secret project, and away we go. It's been intelligence information that has given them an insight they didn't have before. So they could then stand back and say, okay, we got this insight, we've got the tools to respond to that insight, let's go do it.
John Walker's secrets made the Soviets more aware of just how detectable their submarines were. They responded by illegally purchasing milling technology from Japan and Sweden, machines capable of making the quiet propellers found on U.S. submarines. Almost overnight, the Soviets greatly reduced the noise level of their fleet. Espionage, technology transfer, as well as legitimate research in oceanography have all been a part of a complex and costly game of hide and seek. 42 nations have submarine fleets. Any technology that could unmask these submarines would have profound implications. So far, experts say, the ocean remains opaque to all. Back on board the Michigan, the cycle continues. The crew maintains the machine, and the machine sustains the crew. In an artificial environment, nothing is taken for granted. Even oxygen and water must be extracted from the surrounding ocean. Carbon dioxide, normally removed from the atmosphere by plant life, must be mechanically removed from the submarine before it reaches toxic levels. Operating a ship this size requires enormous amounts of energy, supplied by its own nuclear reactor, affectionately known as Michigan Power and Light.
I came from a 594. It's an old fast attack. When I go back to one of the smaller ships, I get claustrophobic. And it's hard for me to stay down there when I've done 100 days at sea on one of those things. You know, without a blink of an eye. Now it bothers me. So yeah, you get really used to this. It's nice, it's big, it drives well for as big as it is. And you know, so you know, it's a really good machine. It's a good weapons platform, and it's you know, just all around. You know, if you have to go to sea on a submarine, this is the way to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Being on, I came off a couple of the fleet-type diesel boats. For existence on their living conditions, there were 8 officers, 72 enlisted people. There were only 48 enlisted bunks. So you didn't have your own bunk, you just had the one that someone just got out of, and it was still warm, and that's where the hot bunking came from.
Submarines like the Michigan are the Navy's largest and most comfortable, but they're still submarines. So this crew is not spared the constant reminders of the dangers inherent to submarining.
The environment is really designed so that people pay attention to it, so that a certain amount of anxiety is always provoked by the different sorts of signs, whether it's showing where nuclear radiation is or particularly hazardous areas, or looking just at the system of pipes overhead. And in contrast to something like a, let's say, a jumbo jet, where you have about the same number of people, about 130, you'll have everything will be covered or hidden from the people in a jumbo jet. You, in a sense, are lulled into believing that, you know, this is certainly safe, and essentially you could have gotten on a train or be in your car listening to music. And submarines are exactly the opposite. And I think what it is it's so that people pay attention to what's really important, that if there's a problem, they know which valve to shut off, or how to evacuate the submarine.
If we had to get out of the ship in a hurry, which hopefully won't happen in my lifetime, on the bottom, what we'll try to do is we have these escape trunks. If we can't get an escape vehicle, I'll put 2 or 3 guys up in the trunk here. They'll put on their Stikey hoods, which kind of make them look, which are Mae West vests with a hood on them, so that they don't blow up their lungs. They can breathe through these things. We'll flood the trunk up, pressurize it and equalize it with sea pressure, open up the upper hatch, and off they go. Now, on the way up, they sound like a bunch of Santa Clauses in training, because they all go ho, ho, ho while they're doing this, just to keep their lungs from equalizing. Some of the problems that they can encounter on the way up is, first of all, they can get stuck in the hatch. They're going to have ear problems. And the possibility of them hitting something on the way up is pretty good. These things will take them up at about 400 feet a minute, so it's a pretty good e-ticket ride. And if they don't breathe just right, they're toast once they get up there.
While the men are conscious of the dangers, they cannot afford to be overwhelmed by them. In a sparse environment, little things become important. Saturday night is pizza night, a tradition on the Michigan.
Each department will take a turn at pizza night, and it's almost a ego thing as to which department can make the better pizza. Tactical Systems has typically been the champion, at least for the time I've been here. We are the best.
I guess you're going to have to leave then.
The cookies are real good, too.
But even with the simple diversions the crew may find to pass the time, there are certain aspects to this life of isolation which are inescapable. For months at a time, questions the men cannot answer. Are the members of my family safe? Are the bills being paid? Did the car pass inspection? Did my child pass history? What's happening in the world?
I'll let you have that one.
It's like dying for 3 months at a time. As far as the world goes, you don't exist. You're a non-entity that's lack of contact with the real world. We're giving up all the things that people take for granted. The sunshine, the basics, you know, fresh air, salads, milk, you know, being able to hug your kids every night. And we volunteer to do it, but it doesn't make it easy.
The rhythm of life on a submarine is routinely interrupted by a call to action from the onshore command center.
Code radio receiving flash traffic.
No one on board knows when these messages will come or what they'll require.
Con radio flash traffic is exercise emergency action message. Recommend alert 1. Radio count on.
This message calls for a battle station's missile drill.
Alert 1, alert 1.
It's an exercise.
Off the deck, proceed to launch depth and prepare to hover. Proceed to launch depth and prepare to hover, aye, sir. Dive, proceed to launch depth, prepare to hover.
A president gives a launch order. It's processed by the military. They transmit it over radio communications to submarines and other forces. So what you're seeing is a crew that is going onto battle station to fire its weapons on the order of the president. And all life on the submarine crew revolves around that one short coded message. And in particular, a set of codes in that message that must match the codes that is in the safe on the submarine. If those codes match, that order is considered to be a legitimate order from the president directly. And the crews validate that message. That's critical.
Message is ready for format verification.
And the senior officers on board have to be convinced that they have a valid order.
Control, executive officer. This message requires battle station's missile. Man, battle station's missile.
Chief of the watch, sound the general alarm.
If one were to imagine a scene from the next World War, it might look something like this.
Battle station's missile. Simulate spinning up all missiles.
Captain, the EM team has a properly formatted message. Request permission to authenticate.
Mr. Neese, do you concur?
Yes, Captain, I concur.
Mr. Durant, do you concur?
I concur, Captain.
You have permission to authenticate.
Authenticate, aye, sir. Captain, the message authenticates.
I agree, Captain. The message authenticates.
Captain, I concur.
I concur. It is an authentic message. Executive officer, break out the CIP key.
Break out the CIP key, aye, sir.
Attention all quartermaster, Lieutenant Colossi, the deck and the con.
Let's deck recommend all stop.
Helm all stop. All stop, Helmine. Answers all stop, sir. Very well, Helm. I'll back one.
The submarine is brought to an undisclosed launch depth where it will hover, waiting for the word to fire.
Let's deck ready to hover.
Very well, diving officer. Diving officer, commence hovering.
Commence hovering, aye. Keep the watch. Commence hovering.
Set condition 1SQ. This is the captain. This is an exercise.
The crew must recognize the voices of both of the ship's senior officers before proceeding.
2, 3, 4, 1, 4. Set condition 1SQ. This is the executive officer. This is an exercise. Set condition 1SQ. This is an exercise. Count today.
Condition 1SQ is the highest state of readiness on a submarine.
Condition 1SQ. Messenger. That's the con. Weapons launcher ready. Launch weapons aye. Standby fire order.
Standby fire order, aye, sir.
The fire order will be 12.
The fire order will be 12. Camp by top eye. Fire and order verified, sir.
Very well.
Set condition 1SQ. This is
As a security measure, the keys required to launch the missiles are kept in separate safes on board the submarine.
weapons con.
Captain, firing key.
12 is simulated release.
I have the firing key.
They are retrieved by 3 officers and exchanged in the moments preceding launch.
Officer deck dive is in 1SQ.
Captain, ship is manned for battle station missile. Dive in condition 1SQ.
Very well. Weapons con, the printouts have been validated.
Weapons con, the printouts have been verified. Count one sec. Con weapons nav. Nav is operating on soon. Nav connect. Nav one sec. Supervisor weapons. Impose manual hold all tubes with the exception of tube 12. Impose manual hold all tubes with the exception of tube 12. What's Supervisor? Weapons supervisor. Manual holds 2 to the exception 212.
Supervisor, weapons eye.
Launcher, select normal launch depth. Simulate prepressurizing 212 to normal launch depth.
Simulate pressurizing 212 to order launch depth, aye.
Stand by to simulate pressurizing 212 to order launch depth.
Matter 6 ready.
Matter 6, Supervisor.
Supervisor, matter 7 ready.
Matter 7, Supervisor.
Conway ready. Launch ready, aye.
Condition 1 SQ 212. Weapons con.
Weapons con, you have permission to fire.
Weapons con, you have permission to fire. Weapons eye, initiating fire.
Initiate fire.
Denote 12. Prepare 12. Away.
12, away.
Missiles terminated away. Weapons con.
Weapons con, permission to fire is removed.
The reality of this drill brings an important question to mind. Despite the many layers of procedural safeguards, could a missile be launched accidentally or without official authorization?
Condition 4 SQ, secure from battle station's missile.
All that prevents the crews from firing their weapons is their training, professionalism, and loyalty, which I think is very deep, and I'm not going to lose sleep over that concern. However, given the fact that accident or unauthorized use is the more likely or plausible route to Armageddon, I think we should be taking every possible step to ensure that safeguards are absolutely ironclad. And the ballistic missile submarine raises immediate concern because of the lack of physical safeguards that absolutely prevent the crew from firing their weapons.
Surface.
Blow the main ballast tanks using high pressure air.
Blow main ballast tanks using high pressure air, aye.
Port the blow valves.
Blow and aft in forward. Blow and fore and after.
The Michigan is surfacing for the first time since leaving port 84 days ago.
Let's rise on. Rise.
The world has changed during her patrol.
6'8". 6'6".
Will her mission change as a
6'2"
result?
feet. 60 feet.
It is one of the ironies of the nuclear age that weapons of such destructive force were relied upon to keep the peace between the superpowers for more than 30 years. Are these submarines now relics of the Cold War? Or is their silent presence still a necessary defense in an uncertain world? For the submariners, until that question is answered, peace in the nuclear age will continue to be a strange cycle of sad farewells, the challenge of isolation, and the anticipation of return.
This is the captain speaking. Before we enter port, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank every man aboard for his contribution to the mission of this ship during the last few months at sea. It's been a hard, difficult time. You have all worked hard, and I'm very proud of each and every one of you. It's time to go home.
Thanks, guys. Come on. I can't say that word on TV. Okay, here he comes. Woo!
You get a lot of butterflies when you come back from sea just because you're not sure what's happened on land and everything. And what keeps you, I guess, going most of the time is just memories of your wife and your family and your friends.
Look around, soak in your surroundings, you know, the trees, the sun, you know, your family, your house, the dog.
I'm sure it's been said over and over again, but it really is the driving force for myself and a lot of people I know. Kind of makes the world go round, especially when you're on a submarine.
Hi, I'm Drake Collier. Tonight at 10, let's talk about convicted murderer Wesley Allen Dodd's desire that the state of Washington hang him now. Should he be granted his wish, or is it important that the state protect his constitutional right to appeal? Also, what do you think about Washington's Girl Scouts wanting to drop the mention of God from their oath?
All right, it worked.
Tonight at 10 on Talk TV.